look at this text here in Luke's Gospel in Luke chapter 17, and if you've been tracking sort of what Charles had, we've just been moving through the Gospel of Luke, following Jesus on Jesus' journey, and we continue in our Living Faith in Everyday series because that's what our faith is for. It's for us to live it in our everyday. Our faith is not just about what we do here for an hour to an hour and 15 minutes or so on Sunday. Our faith is really more about what we do out in the world. If we don't know we have it once we go outside the door, then we've totally missed something while we were in here. If we go out and nobody else other than us know that we have it, then we've missed something while we were in here. So our faith is about living it in the everyday. So as we encounter this text here in Luke 17, Jesus is out and about in his everyday. And it says that he's on his way into a certain village. And as he's entering this certain village, outside of the village, he encounters this group of lepers. There's these 10 lepers who are outside of the village. And they weren't out there because that's where they wanted to be. They weren't out there because they had some lakeside or some oceanside property. They weren't out there because they had a view of the city. They weren't out there because that's where the good tasting water was. They weren't out there because that's where the low rents were. They weren't out there because that's where their mom and them had raised them. They weren't out there because that's where the people like them spoke the same language that they spoke. They weren't out there because that's where they were raised. They were out there because of a condition that they had that was such that the people inside the city said, "We can't have you here any longer." Now we read that and we say, those bad people. Put those poor sick people outside the city. Shame on those city folk. Put those 10 people outside the city walls. Shame on them. Well, be careful when you look in the mirror. Because you know we are those city folk who have put people outside the city. Oh, and I could run that down. Oh, Miss Carolyn said, take my time. All right. I'll do just that, Miss Carolyn. I'll take my time. But think about, as we look at this text here in the gospel, it's in that day, in that particular time, on that day, in that particular place, it was the lepers. It was those who had various skin diseases, who were deemed unclean and unworthy, and were placed outside of the city, placed outside of the functionings of society. Because of what was going on with them, they weren't allowed to be a part of the normal go and the flow of everyday life. So as you sit and you think about, us and our cityfied selves right now, who have we put outside the gates? Who have we run outside? Who have we pushed and shoved to the margins? Who have we decided can't be around us? Who have we decided isn't quite good enough? Who have we decided doesn't quite measure up to our standards? Who have we decided who's just not, who just can't be up close to? Who? Oh, this ended with Jesus? Like this was the last time that ever happened? So what's recorded in Luke 17 was the last time some people were marginalized, some people were pushed to the margins. That was the last time it happened. Oh, well, shame on those people. It's a good thing we got it right. It's a good thing we don't live in judgment. It's a good thing we don't get all up in people's business and decide we know best and decide we're better than. Aren't we so superior? Oh my goodness. I didn't know how good we had it. So Jesus is on his way into this village and these lepers are outside. They're in their little place. And I love this story because it says they called out to Jesus from afar, from far off, from a distance. They have been so conditioned to not engage society. They've been pushed so far outside of what used to be normal. They've been pushed so far outside of what it means to be in relationship with other people that even when they realized the Savior of the world was coming near, they had to keep their distance from him too. They couldn't even get close to Jesus. And again, we may look at that and we're like, oh, these horrible City 5 people who push those poor lepers out. Well, think about our church. Or our churches. That's too much, just other churches in the world. I mean, we haven't taken up the offering yet, so let me know. Oh, was I the only one thinking that? But you think about who the church has throughout history. Has treated as second-class citizens or no-class citizens at all. Decided you can't be here. You can't be a part of who we are. Think about in your own life. When you said or did something and you convinced yourself that what you said or what you did or what somebody said about you or what somebody said you did or what somebody may have thought that they wanted to say about you had you decide, I can't go to church. Or I can't go before God. I mean, that baffles me that we get so twisted and tangled up in who we are and tangled up in ourselves that we decide that we, how do you put it, I got to get myself together before I can go before God. Beloved, you the one got yourself in the situation you in. You ain't going to get out of it unless you go to God. But the church of God, Church of Jesus Christ, is a place where people seek out community. Seek out to be in relationship. Seek to be in relationship with other people. And in relationship with God. That's what makes a faith community. It's being in relationship with each other. In real relationship with each other. That's what helps strengthen our relationship with God.
Amen.
And sometimes we create barriers that get in the way of us being in relationship. You know I'm getting ready to do the list, right? But we create barriers. You don't live in a certain part of town. You don't make a certain amount of money. You don't dress a certain way. If you don't like a certain type of music. If you don't worship in a particular way, loud, quiet, or somewhere in between, whatever it is. Who you love, who you marry, who you vote for, what you drive, where you work, who your friends are, whether or not you're married or been married several times. What happened? What happened? But in certain places, in certain churches, because of four last names, we'll go with four last names, she can't go. Unless she's willing to put on a fake face and show up and not tell her a real story. Because some of us, even getting here, from the drive home to here, we getting on our church get up, getting on our church story, getting on our church face. Because we believe that if we don't show up with our church get up, or with our church face, or with our church story, that we might be ousted too. Because if you really knew my story, you might not accept me. If you really knew my story, you might ask me to sit at the back, if at all. If you really knew my story, you might not flock to get to talk to me quite as often as you do. If you really, see, so we create our church story so that we can feel like we're a part. See, feeling like we're a part is not the same as being a part. Feeling like we're in community is not the same as being in community. Feeling like we're creating community is not the same as being in community. See, so when we faking being together, we just fake it. And what we end up creating is more fakery. I don't know. It's in the Urban Dictionary. But you understand what I'm saying? So if we've created the church, if we have fashioned the church in our own image, such that you need to appear to be at a certain stage or in a certain way in order to be received, no wonder we walk out of here feeling lost, empty, disconnected, longing. But what happened with those lepers that day was they were clear about what they had been told about themselves. Their address reaffirmed over and over again what the world thought about them. But Jesus was coming. And they shouted out, "Lord, have mercy on us." See, they exercised their faith in Him. See, the townspeople and the church had given up on them. And no doubt they may have had even given up on themselves. We've all been there a time or two, right? Well, am I the only one? I'm the only one who's ever given up on myself. So me and the lepers. But Jesus is coming. And they call out, "Lord, have mercy on us." And get this, I love what happens here. Jesus doesn't get his oil and go and lay hands on all of them and, homicide and hecamosiah and halala and all over them. He didn't do any of that. All he said was, "Go, present yourselves to the priests." And they took off. They took off to go to present themselves to the priest. Because if they could present themselves to the priest, y'all, that meant they could re-enter society. They could return to worship. They could return to normal life with everybody else. If they could present themselves to the priest, because they could only present themselves to the priest if they had been healed.
Amen. Amen.
Watch this. As the 10 take off, going to present themselves to the priest, one said, "Wait a minute." And it says, when he saw that he was healed. Which means, while they were running, and I imagine they were running. Wouldn't you be running? I mean, what's that? Usain Bolt or Allison Felix would have nothing on me. Like, what? I'm gone, right? But I imagine them running. But he saw his change. And he turned around and he went back to Jesus. And fell down at Jesus' feet and began to thank Jesus for what had happened with him. Now the text goes on to say that Jesus says, "Well, wait a minute. Glad you're here. But weren't there 9? Where are the other 9? And we give the 9 a bad rap. We give them a bad rap. And we get all excited about this one. And maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I'll let here's where I fall on this. The 9 continue on to show themselves to the priest, because by showing themselves to the priest, they get access to what they have been shut out of. Because a priest is the one who can do that for them within their society. But did you catch in the reading that the one who turned around, the one who went back, was a foreigner? The one who went back was a Samaritan. The one who went back was a Gentile. See, the priest couldn't do anything for him anyway. Now, he could have easily ran himself right on up to the temple. Right on up to the synagogue, rather. And the priest's like, oh, what you doing here? But he cut out the middleman and went right back to the source to offer gratitude for what had come his way. Beloved, all too often we are seeking affirmation. We're seeking from the wrong person. We're seeking forgiveness from the wrong person. We're seeking help from the wrong person. We go in and offer all kind of praise and worship to the wrong person and the wrong things, and they can't do anything for you anyway. Priest couldn't do anything for him. So he turned around and went back to the source of his healing, to the source of his life, to the source of his restoration. And he bowed down and offered gratitude. Final point in this is that he went back and offered gratitude to the one who had healed him. When he saw his healing, he turned around and went back and offered gratitude. And what did Jesus say? Jesus didn't say, thank you for thanking me. Jesus didn't say, you're healed because you offered thanksgiving unto me. Jesus said, your faith has made you well. See, when they called out to Jesus, that was their faith. And it was their calling out unto him that brought about the healing. Him going back saying thank you just is what sustained him and affirmed him in the relationship with the one who had healed him. It wasn't the thanksgiving and the gratitude that had healed him. It was his faith in Jesus that had healed him. And Jesus speaking the word that healed him. His gratitude just kept him connected with the one who had healed him. And so how does that show up for us in everyday? Well, I'm grateful to be able to get in my car, to drive down the Raps or to Trader Joe's. And now I've discovered Sprouts. I like that too. I go around the first of the month when my money's right, you know. But I appreciate being able to go there and get a few vittles, put them in a little bag, bring them home, put them on that nice new stove y'all bought over there. It's nice. Put it in a little refrigerator, mess up some dishes, put it in the dish. I'm grateful to be able to do all that.
Amen.
And it is right to say thank you for the people who work in the fields, for those who serve in the dairies, for those who drive the trucks, for those who work at the checkout stand, for those who stock the shelves, for those who bring in the shopping carts. It is right to thank them and to be grateful for them. But our ultimate gratitude has to go to God for making it possible, for giving us the resource that we need in order to get what we need, in order to get what we need, so that we have what we need. And it all comes from the source. All this one brother shows us is that eventually, beloved, you got to go back to the source and say, grateful to my mother and that man for bringing me into this world. Yep, I said it like that because I meant it like that. Oh, am I the only one with a that man? I'm the only one with a that man. I'm a that man's baby. So thank you. Grateful for my mama, that man. Grateful to been able to grow up, get a halfway decent education, be able to work, care for them. Grateful. But my gratitude can't end with them. Gratitude can't end with my mom. And if I ever talk to him, can't end with him either. But that gratitude has to go back to the source. For even making it possible for me to recognize that there's gratitude to offer. So that's how this can play out in our everyday. Is realizing that what we have to be thankful for. For those we encounter, we have to be thankful for them and even thankful to them. But let's not forget where they came from and from where all of it came from, including that man.